On July 2, 1943, above the sun-drenched Sicilian airfield of Castelvetrano, First Lieutenant Charles B. Hall, a 22-year-old pilot from Brazil, Indiana, carved his name into history when he became the first black American to shoot down an enemy aircraft. Flying his P-40 Warhawk, Hall had no way of knowing that two Focke-Wulf 190s would dive upon the B-25 bombers he was escorting, their sleek, lethal forms slicing through the sky. When he fired, the tracer rounds ripped through the fuselage of one fighter, sending it spiraling toward the Sicilian countryside below, leaving behind the bitter surprise and disbelief of German pilots who had been trained to consider black Americans incapable of mastering machinery or performing acts of courage. The swastika painted on Hall's plane that afternoon symbolized the first of 112 aerial victories the Tuskegee Airmen would ultimately achieve, victories that would force even the most fanatical Nazi ideologues to confront the bankruptcy of their racial theories. In Nazi Germany, the concept of Untermensch classified black people as subhuman, incapable of technical skill or leadership, yet above the Mediterranean skies, reality tore through ideology as 992 men from Tuskegee, Alabama, meticulously dismantled German aircraft, and with them, the assumptions of racial superiority. These pilots were not simply fighting for their country. They were fighting to prove the very humanity and capability of their race in an era when their own nation questioned it. They had trained longer, harder, and more rigorously than their white counterparts, overcoming a 60% washout rate, mastering formation flying, gunnery, and navigation to the highest levels, all while carrying the weight of proving an entire race's worthiness. Their journey had begun decades earlier in a hostile America, where military assessments such as the 1925 U.S. Army War College Report claimed black men were mentally inferior, weak in character, and unfit for technical or leadership roles. Yet pioneers like Eugene Bullard, the first black combat pilot in World War I, and Bessie Coleman, who earned her license in France when no American school would accept her, had already shown that skill knew no racial boundaries. By the late 1930s, black civilian pilots were being trained at institutions such as the Coffey School of Aeronautics in Chicago, and pressure from civil rights leaders, including Walter White, Philip Randolph, and Judge William H. Hastie, finally cracked open the door for black inclusion in military aviation, culminating in Public Law 18 in 1939, which designated training schools for black aviators. By January 16, 1941, Secretary of War Henry L. Stimson announced the formation of the 99th Pursuit Squadron, an all-black flying unit, with the caveat that it was an experiment, a test to see if black men could be trained as combat pilots. Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., the son of America's first black general, assumed command of the squadron and immediately confronted the challenges of leadership under the weight of extraordinary expectations. Davis had endured 4 years of isolation at West Point, where white cadets would refuse to speak to him outside official duties, and now he commanded men whose performance would not just reflect on themselves, but on 13 million black Americans whose courage and ability had been doubted. When the 99th arrived in North Africa in April 1943, attached to the 33rd Fighter Group under Colonel William W. Meyer, a man openly skeptical of black pilots, they were assigned patrol missions far from the fiercest fighting, a deliberate attempt to engineer failure. Yet in June 1943, during their first combat missions over Pantelleria, the Tuskegee Airmen held formation, protected their bombers, and returned unscathed, sending the first quiet message to the Luftwaffe: they would not break under pressure. Hall's victory on July 2, during his 8th mission escorting B-25 Mitchells attacking Castelvetrano, brought that message into the open. Firing with precision, he downed a Focke-Wulf, and when he landed, the base erupted with celebration. Black ground crews who had endured months of insults finally witnessed vindication, and the myth of racial inferiority was confronted in living color above Sicily. Despite skepticism and reports by officers like Colonel Meyer that the 99th lacked aggressiveness, the airmen proved themselves repeatedly, particularly during the grueling battles at Anzio in January 1944, when flying obsolete P-40s against superior Focke-Wulf 190s, they destroyed multiple enemy aircraft in 2 days, including 2 additional victories by Hall, demonstrating that discipline, training, and courage outweighed technological disadvantage. Their success led to the formation of the 332nd Fighter Group, combining the 99th, 100th, 301st, and 302nd Fighter Squadrons, tasked with the dangerous and defining mission of escorting Allied bombers deep into Nazi territory. Under Davis's leadership at Ramitelli Airfield on Italy's Adriatic coast, the Red Tails adopted a philosophy of absolute bomber protection. Their mission was not to chase glory but to ensure every bomber returned safely. The P-51 Mustangs, with their distinctive red tails, red noses, and crimson markings, became a symbol of reliability and skill, earning the admiration of bomber crews who, unaware of the pilot's race at first, quickly came to request the Red Tails by name. On July 18, 1944, their courage and discipline were tested during a ferocious engagement over Memmingen, Germany, as 66 Mustangs faced 100 Luftwaffe fighters attacking bombers from every direction. Despite the intensity of the assault and the loss of 3 pilots, the Red Tails successfully minimized bomber losses, proving that black pilots could excel in major combat operations under extreme pressure. In March 1945, the Tuskegee Airmen faced their ultimate challenge, escorting bombers 1,600 miles to Berlin to strike the Daimler-Benz tank factory against the world's first operational jet fighters, the Me-262s. Utilizing careful tactics and ingenuity, pilots like Lieutenant Roscoe Brown, Earl Lane, and Charles Brantley downed 3 jets in a single engagement, a feat unmatched by most fighter groups during the war. Beyond aerial victories, the Tuskegee Airmen destroyed hundreds of strategic targets on the ground, from locomotives and rail cars to enemy vehicles, while maintaining an aircraft readiness rate equal to or exceeding white units despite limited resources and constant enemy threat. Yet, the battles extended beyond Europe, as returning pilots faced segregation and limited recognition in their own country, even as German pilots acknowledged their skill with nicknames and bomber crews celebrated their protection. Through meticulous training at Tuskegee, flying 300 hours versus 200 for white pilots, mastering formation flying, gunnery, and disciplined combat tactics, the airmen transformed mockery into respect, disproved racial prejudice, and ultimately contributed to the integration of the U.S. military with Executive Order 9981 in 1948. By war's end, their record was indisputable: 1,578 combat missions, 15,000 sorties, 112 enemy aircraft destroyed in the air, 150 on the ground, and 3 Me-262 jets downed in a single mission, with bomber loss rates far below other units. Decorations included 96 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 744 Air Medals, 14 Bronze Stars, and multiple unit citations, cementing their legacy. The Tuskegee Airmen had fought 3 wars simultaneously, defeating the Luftwaffe in combat, confronting Nazi racial ideology, and challenging systemic racism at home, proving that skill, courage, and excellence in aerial warfare were bound not by skin color, but by dedication, training, and an unyielding will to soar above every obstacle. Their story remains a testament to resilience, precision, and the transformative power of opportunity, a legacy that turned prejudice into recognition, ignorance into respect, and mockery into history-changing achievement, with each mission flown a statement that race does not define valor, ability, or heroism.